Yo, it's your boy Lotus, and I just want to jump in real quick before we start today's video to give you guys a little bit of a disclaimer. And that is because the video that you're about to watch is a great conversation that I had with PhiDX about Tekken 8, state of the game, design choices, patches, future of the game, stuff like that. Conversations that have been topical throughout the community as of late. But this video was recorded almost 3 weeks ago on July 23rd. To be exact. And that's worth noting because there are things that we don't talk about in the video, and there are things that we don't address that you'd be like, well, why didn't you talk about Yadi Zoo, or why didn't you talk about Atif and Arslan in the grand finals? Why didn't you talk about this or that? And it's because I'm a terrible content creator who's very unorganized and didn't get this video up very quickly. So yeah, and I had a different idea of how I was going to structure this video visually, but at this point I should just put this out because it's already been so long and I just want you guys to hear it and enjoy it. And yeah, so if you're wondering why we don't talk about certain things or address certain things or whatever, that's why. It's because this was recorded almost 3 weeks ago, which was a week and a half before even Evo happened. So yeah, anyway, that being said, hopefully you guys still enjoy the conversation regardless. And yeah, cue the intro. What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. I'm LotusAsakura, the one who never knows best. And in today's video, I'm joined by a very special guest. You already see him on the screen. None other than the one and only PhiDX. I'm pointing to the wrong side. He's over there. But hey, how's it going, man? How you doing today?
Good to be here. Thanks for having me on again.
I'm glad to have you. You were my first choice, the first guest on my list for this video idea. I mentioned it in probably the last Tekken video that I did, which was over a week ago at this point. Sorry about that, y'all. I haven't uploaded in like 9 days, but you know what I'm saying? It was worth it for the special treat, right? I mentioned that I had like a bunch of things I wrote down, like changes I'd like to see to the game, complaints I have about the game, etc., etc. And I figured that they'd make for some interesting talking points in a discussion video. So I brought on PhiDX because he was my first choice and also your guys' first choice in the comments for who you'd like to see me bring on for that discussion. So with that being said, we're going to jump straight into it. And I think the first thing that I kind of want to address is probably the hottest topic in the Tekken community right now. And the thing I have written down is I need people to complain about characters that aren't named Hwoarang, okay? I don't know what your full opinion is on the character, but let me start off by saying this, okay? Let me preface this. First of all, if you watch this channel regularly, you already know I'm a Hwoarang / Reina main, which I know playing those two characters completely invalidates every single opinion or thought I have on Tekken and fighting games as a whole because I'm a scrubby carried masher, okay? Cool, I get that. That aside, I will be the first to tell you that I think Hwoarang is a very strong character, okay? I'm not trying to downplay him. I don't want to say he's a bottom tier character, although I did think that at one point, okay, you know, several patches ago. But I find it interesting that he's become such a, I mean, he's always been hated by the general player base, but he's such a hot topic right now when it's like, Hwoarang kind of does the same thing a lot of other characters do in the game right now, but there are characters that do it better than he does. And I just think that there are characters who are obviously stronger than him that I'm shocked don't get discussed as much. So more so even than just like me trying to downplay Hwoarang, I'd like your thoughts, because for example, right, I think Anna is arguably the best character in the game, and I don't really see a ton of discussion. Like obviously at the high level everybody knows, right, a player like Atif doesn't pick her up, a player like Arslan doesn't pick her up unless they think she's broken, and Arslan doesn't even like Anna, and he just recently won a tournament playing her, you know what I'm saying?
Right, he tweeted something like, I can never play characters like Lily, Anna, Brian, and there was one other character, he said it's because I just don't like them. And here he is playing, yeah, here he is winning with Anna. And then you have characters like Alyssa, who I think is silly. Oscar is ridiculous right now. And I just kind of want to get some of your thoughts on that, just in terms of, I understand why Hwoarang as a character is like, oh, he's got all these strings and these plus frames, whatever. He's a very, very difficult to match up to learn and deal with, especially at a intermediate to low level. But there are other characters that I feel like do things that are similar or even more egregious than what he does. And what are your kind of thoughts on that? Yeah, I think the unique thing about Hwoarang is he does do a lot of what other characters are doing, you know. Big button in neutral, especially after season 2, into stance, into pressure. What he does that's different is I think he does it faster. And that's where the overwhelming factor comes from. In the time that Lydia is striking different poses and then finally swinging at you, Hwoarang does like 3 moves if he wants to, depending on which ones he's picking, right? So I think there's that overwhelming factor where somebody who's not necessarily the most die-hard student of the game, studying every move from every character, they will probably be super overwhelmed. And I think the unique thing also is that Hwoarang players have to learn those sequences and those like stance options to make it that far in the first place, right? So by the time the average mid-rank player like a Hwoarang mid-rank runs into an opponent, there's a knowledge gap that's so big.
Quickly, what are we considering mid-rank? Because I would think that's like blue ranks, but some people think that that's really high rank. So
yeah, I would say maybe blue to Tekken God, like that entire spectrum of range is where you'll run into like Hwoarang players who understand their combos, understand a few flowcharts, probably more than the opponent understands the defensive options to beat them. Right. Yeah. So, and even honestly, through God of Destruction, God 1, God 2, there's Hwoarang stuff that in NA at least, people are not really good experts at beating. So well, Speed Kicks would spend more time teaching people that instead of beating them up with Brian and Steve. Maybe y'all could get better at these matchups. That's true. But yeah, so I think that there's the speed factor, there's the overwhelming factor, and then there's that innate knowledge gap, right? Like to run Lydia's offense, you don't have to do as much lab work and like drilling and like hitting the punching bag in practice mode like you do with Hwoarang, right? As much as people want to say he's a mashy character, which he can be if you pick the right buttons, he's really like a fast rock paper scissors character. Every option he can generally die for, but if he's correct, he also hits you for, right? And people who say like Lydia is actually kind of fair, which I don't necessarily agree with. People often say Lydia is fair because she can die for every option she does if you're correct, or you can cover a lot of them and then make a hard read when you need to, that kind of situation. Hwoarang is the same thing. He just does it way faster, and you have to be really well studied to be able to execute it and need experience.
You duck when I do down 3-4, I die. Like I don't, which is one of my most important tools as the character.
Yeah, and Reyna often is a character where Reyna pilots will have the same complaints. It's like, my mix-ups aren't that scary. You just duck the low or duck the throw and I die. Again, it's the pace at which these mix-ups are being applied to you. So I actually agree with what you're saying, that Hwoarang does what a lot of the cast does. And especially in Season 2, he does it more egregiously than he ever did before. The homing, advancing, high crushing low.
That he shouldn't have down 3+4. Yeah. That move shouldn't exist.
Or... right flamingo stance 4-3, like looping back into the previous stance. Like,
you can keep that one.
And I think where we hear a lot of the hate is, like Speed was saying on Twitter, the Hwoarang mains are just not as good at downplaying as the other character mains are.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We gotta talk. I feel like everything you just said, I agree with, right? I feel the exact same way about Anna, though. And I think she's genuinely stronger than most of the cast. Like I said, I would make the argument that she's the best character in the game right now. So it's like, why are we focusing on her? Like, why? I get it. We hate Hwo, but can we hate like Lydia and Anna too? Which I also just feel like a lot of the concerns and complaints people have about a character like Hwo, while valid, they say things that apply to like several of the characters, or like even when it comes to like downplay or like counterplay. Like I remember I was streaming recently and I had somebody say, bro, Lydia's not even that good. You just down jab all her options like when she goes in a stance. I'm like, if that's how you feel, then you should have the same mindset with Hwo. Like yeah, down jab beats a lot of what he does too. And again, it's obviously not that simple for either of those characters, but if you feel like if that's how you think, you should think that about both. Regardless, but
no, it's true. It's true because if you think about it, what counters the down jab, say from right stance? The jumping homing mid heat engager, which Lydia also has. So it's like, you know,
it's almost damn near the same animation.
yeah, there are a lot of similarities. And listen, I chronically lose to Hwoarang. I hate the character, but if I have to be honest, he doesn't feel like the biggest war criminal. Now, the changes to Season 2 have shifted that opinion, but I think, and he also has the really crazy counter hit stuff in Heat. I've tried Hwoarang a little bit. I think that stuff is cool. I would rather he keep the counter hit stuff and lose the neutral stuff, right? Because if you have a character designed around fast-paced mix-ups and up close like boxing really, really quick and like stance changes and overwhelming your opponent, a reasonable weakness to have is that from far away, he's super easy to keep out. He struggles to get in. He struggles to get started.
Right.
Season 2 removed that weakness, which is my biggest complaint with the character, because if you watch a Korean fight a Hwoarang, like Speed switched to Nina when he fought JDCR because the Koreans know Hwoarang in and out. That's like the first character they start looking at, right? So it is really an issue of he's very overwhelming, he's very fast, and there's a knowledge gap in the mid rank. I think that's why we see more complaints about him than any other character.
It makes sense. I can see here we could have a whole video discussion about that singular character, but you did mention counter hits, and that's something else that I have on my list where I just feel like I don't know if I'm tripping. And again, like I'm like a mid-level player myself, right? So some of these these might be scrub takes, and he's gonna let me know whether or not some of these things are just a skill issue or like there's a genuine discussion to be had. I feel like there's so many strong counter hitting tools in this game. It feels like every string, every button is a counter hit launcher or a counter hit wall splat or gets a guaranteed follow. Like I feel like there's so many like guaranteed situations in this game where it's like, oh, if this hits, you get a guaranteed heat engager, or if this hits, it's a counter hit launcher, or this is a knockdown into this follow up. Like I just feel like there's so many like guarantees in this game, which I don't know. It just feels like it's been way more than previous Tekken games. I don't know how you feel about that. Like, is that just in my head, or do you think that might actually be true?
No, definitely. I think season 2 really brought about, like, Lydia gets that homing kick. Now she gets a guaranteed follow up. She gets sidestep 2, like the elbow. She gets a guaranteed follow up. Like they're adding a lot of guaranteed follow ups. Jack hits like the Jack does like the overhead. It puts you in crouch. He gets a crouch throw. You know.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff like that has been added, and I put them, I think, separately from the counter hit thing, but because my complaints about them are a little different. So starting with the guaranteed follow ups, my only gripe with them is they take you out of the game kind of like combos do. So like my general take on Tekken historically is that the game is really fun, specifically because you have so many options in neutral, sidestep, backdash, forward dash, canceling all those options, stuff like that. And the moves are generally slower. So you're doing a lot more interacting with your opponent and trying to outplay what like their intentions are. Like they can tell you a lot about what they want to do because a lot of stuff is easier to perceive and there's a lot of options, right?
Right.
The more time you spend being a victim of a combo or even doing a combo, and in that I'll lump it together with the guaranteed follow-up situations, the less time you're interacting with the other person as a human, right? So now people make the argument that in anime games you have longer combos, you have like combo breaker stuff, and I think that's all valid game design and that can be fun. But specifically with Tekken, I think the person versus person, let's keep cycling our options and see what happens. Yeah, you get a big launcher, let's get a few hits in. Tekken 6 introduced like bounds, so the combos were a bit longer, but I thought it was still kind of reasonable. I think we're now hitting a point where all these guaranteed follow-ups, every time somebody hits you, they strike a pose, the camera zooms in, they get a guaranteed animation, the rage arts are like 10 seconds. I think we're just hitting a point where there's so much of us putting the controller down, watching what they're doing a bit, and then picking it back up.
There's a lot of downtime when you're playing Tekken, which isn't historically how it is. It's like constant interaction, constant decision making, but the game has gotten, obviously combos are longer than ever. There's so many cinematics in the game, whether it's rage arts or just the poses when you heat engage or heat smash, or you know, Hwoarang just came out. He's got this whole walk up animation, and it's just like, like, yo, can we just play the game? So like I get it. And I play anime games, right? Like I've played DBFZ, I've played Guilty Gear, I've played a lot of these games. So I like long combos. I'm used to cinematic supers, but in Tekken, it's just like we could dial that back a little bit and get back to the game. I feel like, but you know.
And I wasn't a huge Dragon Ball FighterZ player, but I did play a bit, and my understanding is that like there's still a lot of decision points happening in the combo, right? Like sometimes you want to go for a loop if you want to like maximize your damage, maximize like your meter. Sometimes you want to go for something simpler. And throughout all of those decision points, the defender is also looking like, can he screw up here? Is there like some kind of setup? If I tech down, if I tech up, if I, you know, like there's a lot of decisions to be made. In Tekken, they don't really have that built into the defensive combo system. So you end up just watching combos that are honestly easier to execute and take up more time and have less interaction as the defender. So I think there is a place for long combos and combo expression. I'm not saying Tekken isn't the place for that, but the current system we have is not compatible with it, I think. There's a lot of, like you said, downtime.
So continuing on with like combos, obviously combo damage is really high in this game. And high damage isn't something I necessarily have an issue with, although I do think that you've made a great point in the past about how, you know, historically or traditionally in Tekken, you have to make a decision when it comes to your combo between, do I want maximum wall carry or do I want maximum damage? Do I want something that's going to give me an Oki setup at the end? Whereas now everything's kind of been homogenized and it's like you get all of that in one. Your bread and butter combo typically gives you maximum wall carry and damage and Oki all in one, and that's just like one less decision that you have to make as a player, which is obviously simplifying it, making offense stronger, everything, so on and so forth. And it would be nice to see kind of a return to like you having to make a decision between those. But I also feel like that since there's been such a big focus on damage, obviously one thing that they did was they increased the amount of health in the game, which I was very skeptical about. And honestly, I still am. And some people have made the argument that it's a good thing. Some people still feel like it's a bad thing. And it's about, you know, has poking gotten better or worse because of it? Because poking obviously does not less damage, but like it's chipping away less at the health bar. But because there's so much gray life in the game, which is something else I want to talk about, pokes are strong because they don't do Grey Life, whereas combos are Grey Life. I kind of wish they would revert the HP change. I don't know how you feel about this. I've seen Speed Kicks talk about this and he thinks it's a good thing. So where I stand on it is kind of that I think at first, maybe a little bit less right now, but at first, when they added more HP, it definitely felt like rounds were taking a lot longer, which is something that I'm personally not a fan of. The game taking longer to play, or even worse, ending in timeout, which I feel like I saw a lot of after that change. I think that's unhealthy. I think that's less interesting and exciting, both as a player and as a spectator. Obviously worse for tournaments and everything like that. And I think if they are going to go forward at some point with nerfing combo damage, I think that's going to make matches take even longer in combination with the increased health. And so I kind of want to get your thoughts and your opinion on that when it comes to the health change, whether it's been good or bad. Do you think that they should revert it? Is it fine as is? And how do you think the game will be moving forward if combos do get nerfed in some capacity?
Yeah, there's a lot of health changes that I think are more of a factor than just the 15 HP that people may be overlooking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or 15, 20 HP?
I think it was 20. I think it went from 180 to 200.
From 180 to 200, right? There are other changes on top of that I think made a big difference. And I definitely want to go back and talk about counter hits later, but this is a good topic. The HP and the combo length and the round time. I think that, so let's talk about what changed first. There's the HP increase, mm-hmm. which has side effects, right? You have more chances to keep gray health, so that's a factor. And you also have rage triggering sooner. And when rage triggers, you take less chip damage, right? So that's part of where I think the extended rounds come from, is that you're getting rage sooner, you can heal past the rage threshold, but still keep the state. So hypothetically, you could have like 50% HP and not take chip damage anymore, effectively.
Right.
And that super slows down the game, especially because the opponent can't just run you over with chip, and then they're also attacking into your potential rage art. So that HP change and getting rage slows the game a lot. On top of that, when you are in heat and you take damage, all of it goes to gray. So people are having more gray health than normal. That isn't a consequence of chip, but just because they're in heat, right? So now you have extra HP, sooner rage, so chip basically deactivates sooner, and more chances to have gray health. When you combine that with the looping stances and the super long combos, a lot of that gray health can be recovered. When you combine that with strong aerial tailspin being given to almost every character to do 3 per combo,
which is insane.
All of that, I think, is where the round timer is starting to be too short, right? They've made all these changes that are kind of fixing other issues, and then we don't have the time to accommodate that. We were seeing more timeouts, and the fact that the game is slowing down in general.
I can interrupt you real quick, because I've seen people say, oh, they should just increase the round timer. No, I don't like that. I don't like that solution. Go on, please.
I think, and my vibe on that is, it could go either way. At first, I said absolutely not, because what it feels like in season 2, at least 2.0, and then they had the HP increase, it feels like they gave us more money to play slots with, right? If you think of I always talk about season 1 Tekken 8, it was kind of a casino game, but it felt like blackjack or poker. You had these skill elements where you could play into it, mm-hmm. and then there are times where you the house will win. Season 2, when we read the patch notes, when we saw how much everybody had all these neutral options and not many weaknesses, and especially, people maybe didn't experience it, but if you fought a really good player, if you fought these high skill American players who could execute the dumb stuff, it really felt like, wow, we are now playing slots, and any health increase, any timer increase, they're giving us a bit more cash just to do the same thing over and over. It doesn't make it more interesting necessarily. So that was where I agreed with you on having an increased timer. Just feels like a band-aid on a band-aid on a band-aid on a band-aid, right?
Yeah.
Now my opinion on it, I feel like it could go either way, especially because it doesn't feel like they want to shorten the combos. It doesn't feel like they want to roll back the big neutral buttons. I don't know. I have an old head perspective, I guess. Mm-hmm. I really love what the Koreans and the Japanese and the high level American players and the European players, all the super top tier players in old Tekkens, I loved how fast they were moving. I loved how they were exchanging reads all the time. So even though I can't really do it, I like the idea of a Tekken 8 where the timer stays the same, the combos are shorter, we're interacting more. Cinematics, I think, have a place, but I think, like we said, we're going too far, I think.
Yeah.
That's my take on all the Season 2 HP and timer and combo length stuff.
That's fair. So you mentioned Gray Life and how, you know, heat and rage are all playing a factor, and then obviously like the amount of recoverable health that you can get when you're just looping these stances and everything like that. I am of the opinion that there's too much Gray Life in the game. I understand why it exists. I would even argue that it's a necessity in the game the way that it's currently designed and structured. Because then without it, like the snowballing factor that exists in the game feels even worse than it already does. But I just think it's a bit much. Like I remember in Dragon Ball Fighters, which is the game I always go back and compare everything to because it's just the thing I'm the most experienced with when it comes to playing fighting games at a decent level, right? And it's also just what most of my viewers here on the channel are also familiar with because it's what I built most of you guys up from. That game had a similar issue, in my opinion, where at the start, there was just too much recoverable health. The amount of blue health that you could recover when you swap your assists out was just very high. And at some point, they brought it down. And I feel like in this game as well, like you just see situations where a character can have 50-60% gray life. Like I'm sure we've all experienced this. Like I've had games where it's like my opponent gets this right one time where they have like maybe 10% HP, but like a ton of recoverable life. And they recover all that health. Like they might have been one poke away from dying, but like I did something, they made a read, and by the end of the round, like I've lost the round, and they went from being one poke away to having like 50% of their HP, and it's just like, yo, okay, like I made a mistake, they made a good play, but even still, like I just feel like it gets stand to be toned down a little bit, and so I don't know if just like the percentage of gray life that you retain like upon being launched needs to be like different or what, but I just personally feel like it's a lot.
Let me connect with you on that on an emotional level because I agree. Because I'll be having people last hit, they heat engage, and then I lose the round. If I were to try to remove myself from those frustrating situations, my initial guess is that it's probably for the better, probably. So let me say that I think that issue feels more frustrating in a 1st to 2, which is the default mode we play in ranked and things like that in tournament, right? But in a long set, you can start to tell if somebody is the type of guy to greed for a heat engage if they got 1 pixel, or if they're the type of guy to just stay consistent, fight back, like make their lead back normally. And that information, I think, in a game that has, you know, more simple neutral, more simple mix-up situations than previous Tekkens, that little element of mind gaming is pretty cool. I think the fact that that is a potential place of outplay, right? Like potential areas to outplay a specific opponent, that's cool to me. The problem is we play 1st to 2, and the problem is that...
So should the game be designed around 1st to 2 or with a longer set in mind? Obviously you want to balance, but like we're mostly playing the game in 1st to 2, so...
Yeah. And to me, of all the issues the game has, that hasn't been one that jumped out to me, right? To me, the fact that somebody can make that kind of gray health comeback is because every round I'm attacking into Rage Art, right? Like in Tekken 7, Rage Art or Rage Drive was like the decision point. So maybe they'll try to get a big comeback with like a plus frame or like a good whiff punish or like a mix-up situation from doing the Rage Drive. But then I don't have to worry about Rage Art when I attack into it. Or they're the type of guy to hold it. Now in Tekken 8, there's no other resource to spend Rage on. So every single round Rage Art's on the table. Every single round I have to hesitate. Then that gray health becomes more of a factor. So like that has been more of an issue to me and how it affects my play than necessarily the gray health itself, right?
That makes sense.
The fact that somebody, you know, I want to talk about counter hits again. The fact that a bunch of characters got jab string counter hit heat engagers now. Law, Lars, Dragunov, Oscar.
I hate those, by the way. I hate those so much.
Yeah. And I feel like the gray health specifically, to me, takes a backseat compared to those other issues, right? It gives us extra resources. It gives us more outplay potential. But it only exists because there are these other problematic things that have been allowed to keep getting put in. That's my take on it.
Okay. I have another one. Again, we're jumping over, but I don't know if I even properly explained this to start the video. A lot of these things that we're discussing, this is stuff that like I just wrote down when I'm playing the game. So some of these are just like scrubby complaints. Some of these are actual talking points. These are just like frustrations, ideas, changes, whatever that like I've just written down while playing the game. I know we're like 20 minutes deep into this video. I don't know if I ever actually elaborate on that point, but regardless, I think the next topic I want to jump into is installs, man. And so as a Hwoarang player and as a Reina player, I love stance mix-up characters. Okay, that's an archetype that I enjoy. I enjoy rushdown. I enjoy mix-up. I think those types of characters are typically pretty cool. That being said, I think it's very lame when every character does that, because then I don't stand out anymore. It doesn't make my character unique or different or cool anymore. And I think variety and player expression, these things are very important in fighting games, and these like picking that style of character is how I express myself and how I enjoy playing the game. So every character becoming stance, rush down, 50-50, like that is lame to me despite liking that archetype or that play style. Similarly, I think installs in fighting games generally are really cool, but I don't know if they really have a place in Tekken at all, let alone every character getting one. Like Zafina has an install, Eddie has an install, Heihachi has an install, Lydia, June, like it's becoming incredibly common and very, very powerful. And it's just something that I personally take issue with. Don't think June should have it. Don't think like Brian really needs. I mean, again, maybe some of the ways some of these characters are designed in this game, like you could argue, oh, but they need it because I'm without it. But like, I think the character should have just been designed differently. But what is your take on installs right now as they currently exist in Tekken 8?
Again, from my old head perspective, I would rather they don't exist at all. But understanding that they are likely here to stay, I tend to argue about it from like a does it make sense on this character perspective, right? So if I were the director, I would just say no. What's up?
How do you feel then? Okay, so let's not think about the characters who had them initially. What about characters who were clearly designed without it in mind? The game launched without them, and then they got it added. So like June or Zafina, like they didn't have an install at the start, so clearly they didn't need it. You know what I'm saying? And they were designed without it in mind, or maybe you could argue that they had planned to do it all along whenever they got to season 2, whatever. But so a character like Brian, okay, he had Snake Eyes, Nani wa Gusto existed, cool. But these characters who like got it added to them post-launch, like was that necessary? Like
the thing I would argue, even on top of that, is for some of the initial installs, like Leo's, didn't feel they felt pretty lackluster anyways, or like not really well thought out. I'll start there just because it's chronological. Leo had the ability to like in Tekken 7 like key charge after some follow-ups or like get like a little power up, right? They turned that into an official install to buff moves like the Hell Sweep, give it a third hit, some of the other moves as well. And it felt very okay. I don't think Leo players were really writing home about that. It ate up so much of your meter if you used it during heat. So it was a very mid type of install, and I was actually kind of okay with that. It was like it did not completely change the way I play around the character, right? And the character kind of did their thing, but a little stronger. When I think of a character like Brian having the super armor parry, Neo Incinerator homing string, like that's a different level of install, right? And Asuka's install is, well, I think in season 1 it was kind of interesting, right? She got the empowered grounded damage, she got the empowered like running move, things like that.
That's what Asuka needs more of, is the damage, right?
Yeah. So there were different, even in launch, there were different power levels of installs, right? Claudio's always had his from Tekken 7. His was decently well thought out, I think. The fact that he got it after Rage Art was kind of dumb.
I agree.
And he still gets it after Rage Art. That's pretty dumb. But yeah, so there was a mix of power levels. Season 2, I thought they would refine how the installs were already put in. So when they gave June hers, and I fight a June player who was like a high level Tekken Tag 2 player, and he didn't play as much 7, but he plays June in 8. And he was like, yeah, this install's weird because I'm just doing what I would normally do, and then I just start getting stronger. Like there's just
getting rewarded for it. You don't have to go out of your way to earn it.
Exactly. And you know, Clive is a hot button character, but to his credit in design, he has to make decisions in his moves. Does he want to build meter? Does he want to get damage or a situation, or give less gray health, right? The Zantetsuken moves all do less damage and I believe are all gray, like they don't do permanent health damage, which is in line with how the character works in Final Fantasy. So as like a Final Fantasy nerd, that's a cool little decision point of immersion, stuff like that. And it creates mental points of outplay. If you know your opponent's a meter type of guy, right? Do you call out the meter moves more often than, say, someone who is just playing it more of a straightforward Tekken character? Zafina's install is weird too, because again, it feels like there are just moves that she kind of wants to do anyways. And then she gets it again, but stronger. She gets into heat. There was my first tournament commentary for Tekken 8 was Tampa Never Sleeps, TNS. And the grand final was picking Zafina.
I saw that.
And he went into heat and he just did the same move, the back 1+2, post nerf, no longer homing. Just spend the install.
Still
buff.
a pretty good move.
Spend the install. Buff. Chip. There's not a lot of interaction. It feels like with a game like Tekken, where you have so many moves, so many characters, so many matchups, you have to be so careful about how you make these kinds of changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the pitfall and the reason why a lot of complaints, I think, get heard and implemented in the game, like on Twitter, is just that Tekken is such a hard game that a lot of people don't get to the level where they can abuse all these things to their maximum effect, and people can really see how dumb it is, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and even me, like, if I were to pick up Hwoarang today, I don't think I would abuse him as badly as, like, to show how egregious a lot of his things are.
I think that that applies to every skill level, and even some of the highest level players. Like when I see Law getting played in 20, I'm like, yo, y'all not abusing nunchucks nearly as much as you should be. You know what I'm saying?
The best Law in the world, Mangja.
Yeah, well, he's who I'm thinking about in particular, because I'm like, yo,
he's not playing Soul Calibur yet.
You know what I mean? You need to be playing Maxi out there, which leads me to another talking point. I don't think under any circumstances any character should be regenerating heat ever. I think I have an issue with heat in, it's not a mechanic that I ever thought like, oh, this needs to get removed, because like that was just obviously never going to happen. It just needs to be tinkered with, right? And I think that heat maybe shouldn't freeze like when you're doing combos. I understand that maybe like because this game is so cinematic, there's certain things where like, okay, I understand the heat timer not depleting while you're in Hwoarang's 17-second cinematic where he's walking up to you. But like Law regenerating heat for using the nunchucks, I don't like that. I don't like any character at all regenerating heat for any reason.
Yeah. No, so I'm on the same page. When I think of Tekken 8, heat, it was built around heat, so it's probably here to stay. Most high level like seasoned players would like be like, yeah, it'd be cool if it weren't there, but realistically, it's gonna stay. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing. You know, we were just talking about installs. I thought heat was supposed to be our install. So what is this? What is this God mode outside of this timed period of power? And the whole idea of heat being timed and limited is kind of a huge factor in Tekken 8, right? The HP increase. One thing I didn't mention is that if you heat engage too soon, you might have to fight an opponent with still 70% HP. They have heat and you don't. That's horrible. That feels awful. So the fact that heat is limited is huge. So I agree that heat regeneration feels like a very slapped on mechanic that is very weird. And there's no like consistency to how they're regenerated. It feels like just whatever they feel like that character should do. So like King grabbed me, he should get some heat back. Is it a lot? Not really, but conceptually the fact that he could throw me one more time or heat smash me one more time does make a bit of a difference. And then you have the most egregious offense of that, which is Law, where he can heat burst, which starts you with less meter, do a combo before you can interact, and he's full meter at the end of the combo. So that's a meter positive combo.
Right.
So that is an insane thing to have in the first place. And then even now where they've toned down, say like Lars, who used to just do his combo and also regenerate heat because he was going stance. It's now at a reasonable level where he's not just getting total heat for free.
Mm-hmm.
But it does take away a bit of that, hey, maybe is this really the moment I want to activate heat, or is this something I should save for later? And I am not a fan of how it feels kind of slapped on, the regeneration. Just like the installs feel kind of slapped on in Season 2, the regeneration feels kind of slapped on. Like there wasn't a lot of regard for how crazy it could be to give somebody full meter every single time they land a generic down forward 2.
Yeah, I like what you said about making that decision of is now a good time to use your heat, because I felt like the HP change made it so that heat mattered more, because like you said, you'd be in a situation where that there's a health gap or a deficit and you're like, damn, he has heat and I don't. So it kind of like added a little bit more like thought to when you should pop heat, whereas before, and like again, there are several changes that go into this, but it's just like, I mean, there are people doing round start heat engagers, not necessarily heat burst. Well, I mean, depending on what level you're playing at. I have people who do round start heat burst against me all the time, but there's like your opening gambit might be like a heat engager, right? Whereas now it's like, well, unless I kill them before this heat runs out, this could come back to bite me. And I think that with heat regeneration, you have to think about that less, because it's just like, well, I can regenerate my heat anyway and prolong the life of this and how long I get to abuse this tool or this mode or whatever. And then when you stacking that on top of rage or other installs or whatever, it's a lot. It
also undid a lot of the changes we saw in season 1 that were generally well received. So Law used to get the slide into the nunchuck and get the pancake flip over, which makes you have to guess again.
And you just loop it.
He used to get that without heat, right? So they took that away because they felt like, well, this isn't really fun to put somebody in a constant guessing game over and over, and the only choice they have to escape it is to guess right. So we'll only let him do that flip over situation in heat because that's his install empowered state. He'll get that temporarily. Then season 2 comes about. They give him enough regeneration that it becomes a looping situation again. He regenerates enough heat with the nunchuck that he could perpetually recreate that situation. So it's like, do you guys know what you want us to experience? It doesn't make sense. They went back and forth.
It doesn't feel like it at times. Also, hold on one second. Let me adjust something real quick.
Yeah, you good.
Okay. Yeah. You also mentioned like a certain level of like consistency when it comes to like this heat regeneration and how it's applied to certain characters. And I feel similarly about heat smashes. There's a lot of conversation to be had about heat smashes. There are some people out there who believe like no one's heat smash should ever wall splat. I personally don't feel that way, but I also play a character who has a heat smash that does wall splat, so you could call me biased. Sure, I'd like to think that I am capable of taking my perspectives, you know, like taking my own biases and characters aside for the sake of these conversations. But when you play certain characters, Hwoarang, people don't want to listen. But regardless, I think it's fine if some characters can wall splat. I think more so, I don't see the consistency with how heat smashes are designed or balanced. Like, so, like, you would think that the way it would work is something to the effect of this, right? All right, this character's heat smash is very, very fast, but it's low damage. This character gets a wall splat, but it's negative on block. This character gets a mix up from it, but like the mix up you get isn't super, you know what I'm saying? It would be balancing that way, but I don't really feel like heat smashes are balanced that way in this game, where it just kind of seems random. It's like, okay, let's give this character a 13 damage 50 frame, or a 13 frame 50 damage heat smash just cause vibes. You know what I'm saying? And then this character also has a 50 damage heat smash, but theirs is 19 frames. And it's, you know what I mean? So I don't know how you feel about that. I don't necessarily have a problem with wall splats in general. If they would remove the wall splat property from everybody's heat smash, I guess I wouldn't really have a problem with that, as long as it was from every character. But then you have certain characters where it's like, well, what's the point of this heat smash then? Or this now just, it loses this, you know what I mean? I just don't think that they were super well thought out when it comes to which properties were given to which characters on their heat smashes, at least in my opinion, but there could be something I'm missing.
Yeah. No, I kind of agree. I think, first of all, when it comes to wall splatting, I like the idea that some do and some don't. To me, a fighting game loses all its spice if everything does the same thing. Right. So, and that's part of the complaint of season 2. Every character is Lydia to some extent, you know, and it's obviously been changing. So that was more of a version 2.0 opinion. But yeah. So I think that having variety in properties, in speed, in tracking, in how it integrates with the rest of their kit is a logical thing. So like, you had a great prologue about removing character bias from your opinion, and I need to steal that for now because I want to talk about Steve's heat smash, right? In season 1, it was his old homing down forward 2, right? And it also broke floors. For Steve, in the context of his kit, breaking floors, he doesn't have like a floor break throw that's like a command throw. So his only floor break throw is the generic one that you can break with either punch button. And his tracking is generally worse in this game because sidestepping is better, and that's even crazier in season 2. So, in my mind, as a biased Steve player, I thought it was cool that I got one chance to have a homing mid callout move. Now, such a move is very toxic. So I'm okay with the fact that they removed it because it is a pretty skillless move to be like, I don't know if you're ducking, I don't know if you're standing, I don't know if you're stepping, let's go. Plus frames, you know? So I can see why they took it out. But at least it felt like there was some thought behind it, right? He has these weaknesses as of Tekken 8. He has these, like, you know, no floor break throw, no homing mid. Let's give him one chance to have one. That's kind of cool to me, right? I like the idea of it, even if it ended up being too broken. Contrast that with, say, like Anna's heat smash in season 2, where she is a fast poking character. She's a Nina Williams, right? She's a Nina Williams who has the stance pressure of Hwoarang. So on top of that, she has...
Say that again real quick.
She got Nina Williams poking. She got Hwoarang stance offense. And she has like Clive buttons. Forward, 2.
That sounds like a pretty broken character.
Yeah. So the only way you fight back against like a Nina character, right? You got a single jab, you got a down jab, and then, backdash, try to create space. If they're being too sticky, then maybe you get like a little keep out button. Why is Anna's Heat Smash a high evading 13 frame mid?
Vibes.
The one move I would use to fight back is no longer a factor. I can't power crush, I can't parry, I can't jab.
Well, that was a clear weakness, jab, that's a big deal. Like, she clearly needed something.
It was my only hope.
She needed something to counter that, man.
So, and to their credit, they didn't make it plus on block, so that's something. But it applies the debuff and it breaks walls. So, it felt like it felt like they were too scared to give it a weakness. They were really concerned about removing one of the little, hashtag properties of a move on that one. So, yeah, I'm with you. I feel like the Heat Smash, they are leaning so much in the idea that Heat Smashes have to be powerful in really, like, honestly, it feels like BS robbery ways. The bears will evade your jab and, like, hit you with their Heat Smash too. So, while I can understand that the Heat Smash should be powerful, right? Like, think of Dragunov's Heat Smash. It's so in line with his character. He's poking you up. He's putting you in guessing games. He's putting you in egregious plus frames. His Heat Smash is more of that with the ease of execution of the running 2, right? You don't have to, like, try as hard to get it off. And even the animation fits his character. I think his Heat Smash, like, it's stupid, but it's well designed in that way, right?
Yeah.
They tone down how far he runs away from you when he whiffs it. I would just like it to be a bit more thought out in that way. And without doing a deep dive of every character and what they can do, what they can't do, it's hard for me to, like, definitively say this one needs a wall splat, this one doesn't need a wall splat. But I like the idea of some people keeping it. I like the idea of Heat Smashes not being kind of foolproof, like evading everything, I don't think Lily needed her new Heat Smash, right? I'm a Lily player. They gave her forward-facing Heat Smash.
I thought the one she already had was really good.
The forward-facing one was, like, it wasn't a top-tier Heat Smash, but it wasn't bad. It had a purpose, right? You want to break somebody's armor. It's like pseudo-tracking. Like, it makes sense. Now they just gave her a generic mid one because they complained enough. But she still has the back turn one. The back turn one is really good. The low Heat Smash.
I got some thoughts about Lily players, but I'm going to keep them to myself right now.
So I think that, they nerfed some characters' Heat Smashes. They overbuffed some characters' Heat Smashes and seemed to disregard how it functioned in the context of the character. Lily did not need a plus frame mid Heat Smash, and they gave her one. So, here we are.
You know that animation that Asuka does when she whiffs her forward one, where she, like, kind of stumbles?
Yeah.
I feel like if you whiff a Heat Smash, if the first hit don't connect, I feel like every character should do that.
Yeah. No, I think for the first 6 months of the game, I got hit by Law whiffing the Heat Smash and then nunchucking me the second time.
Bro, and like, this is somewhat of a skill issue, but like the amount of times where I'm like, oh, I see something whiff, and before I even process that's a Heat Smash, like, oh, whiff, let me whiff. I got hit by the second or third hit of a Heat Smash, and now I'm getting wall splat into wall blast, into full combo, into tailspin, into tornado, and now we're at the other wall. And I was like, we've all been through this, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, yo, but like, imagine, just imagine for a second, Dragunov, oh, I'm about to just mash this R1 button real quick, and then he does his running 2 like animation and then stumbles like Asuka, and like, ha, got your ass. And I back 3 and he dies and I win. And you know what I'm saying? I just think that's a much better game.
A beautiful world.
You know what I mean? Like society, if Heat Smash is like played out like Asuka on whiff, you know what I mean? But
yeah.
How do you feel about the amount of plus frames? Actually, let me ask you, I don't remember numbers for stuff like this off the top of my head, but you were even more invested into Tekken 7, at least competitively, than I was. How do rage drives that were plus on block compare to, I can't even remember which ones were, if any, compared to like the Heat Smashes that are plus on block. I would imagine that Heat Smashes are a lot more plus and obviously lead to better mix-ups than rage drives ever did. But I asked this because obviously some people are like, oh, Heat Smashes shouldn't be plus on block in the first place, like they should just be safe at most, or they need to be less plus. So what is that comparison to you like, and how do you feel about the amount of plus frames?
It's funny because when I think of Heat Smashes, like the plus frames are crazy, but they weren't the things that made me go like, yeah, this needs way less. I mean, for example, Brian, his needed to get toned down, and it just did.
Yeah,
from plus 15 to plus 9.
Which is still a lot.
this whole double-digit plus frame movement we've been going through is very foreign in general. On hit, on counter hit, on block, any of that. Having over plus 11 just feels silly because it's not even a like think of Steve's 5 Fox Fury, the heat string, like the 5 punch combo.
Oh, that character was so silly for a bit there.
But it wasn't even fun for the Steve player to be plus 11 because Steve is a counter hit character. You want them to be minus enough. Allegedly, you want him to be minus enough, your opponent, so that they want to interact with you, so you get the counter hit. If he's plus 11, nobody in their right mind is hitting a button. So what the situation became is like, I'll do the frame trap, I guess, but if they block it, it's like, well, I'm the idiot. And then you try to go for the mind game option because you're plus 11. Who in the right way to mash? You get mashed on. You're like, well, he's an idiot, but I lost for it. So like, it felt very brain dead. You know?
Yeah.
Now it's only plus 3. So we have more mind games. They might duck my frame trap. They might step my frame trap. I got to read that. It feels cool. It feels cool to outplay somebody when the options open up. So in general, heat smashes and rage drives before had a similar thing, but it feels different in that game because whether they were plus, whether they were minus, you would often try to backdash and disengage anyways. So it felt like
Tekken 7
the frame situation didn't come into factor as much as it does in this game, where the sidestep is so much better, where parries are a huge defensive factor, but they're nerfed in some ways, weak to throws, right? There's more interaction points in this game, so you feel that aggressive plus frame deficit way more as the defender than I think you used to in 7. Because even in 7, they could be plus 9, or Zafina had a crazy plus frame heat smash, right? Most heat smashes, if they mix you up after, you could low parry it and then be fine. Zafina had a unique rage drive where she was so plus that one of her lows became unlow parryable. You had to just block it. That was probably the first taste of like a Tekken 8ism.
So stupid.
You know? So, is it worse? Hard to say because the game is so much different. But I think that they've shown that there's a bit of reform happening, right? Brian's getting nerfed. Some of the heat strings, like Steve's getting nerfed with plus frames. We're still in a place where it's so crazy for a Tekken game to have this many plus frames, right? I think there was a patch note that it said change the advantage from plus 25 to plus 3. I was like, why was it plus 25? And it was like a counter hit low.
I'm trying to remember what character that was.
I think it was Shaheen or Lars.
I was going to say Lars, but I can't remember. I think it was Lars.
I think it was limited entry 1. It was the low swipe.
I think it was Lars because I feel like I remember Max like reading that note and going like, okay, that's fair, but like, holy.
It's like, why was it there? How did it make it to the live server?
Yeah. On the subject of plus frames, and we've been at this for a while, and I enjoying the conversation so much. Like I'm having a good time. Yeah, I could sit here all day, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. And also, you know, I know the folks over on YouTube, some of them, they tend to fall asleep if the video's not 30 seconds long. So I think we'll wrap up with the final thing, or we'll make this the final topic for now.
Sure.
I don't know about you, but is the concept, just the even idea of like homing moves being plus like not insane? Like I always thought that like the idea of a homing move is like they can be safe, sure, but like you're making a read on your opponent's movement and trying to catch them in that movement, and so you're probably giving up your turn if you're wrong. And if it connects, sure, then you can make the argument of what type of situation that should lead to. But like these plus on block homing moves kind of like blow my mind. Oh, you play Hwoarang. You have, I know. I have right stance down forward 3. It's +1, which is like, people seem to think that moves like +10, I guess because the animation. But like you could make that move 0 on block or -1, whatever, or even -9, and I wouldn't really care personally. But yeah, how do you feel about plus on block homing moves, just generally speaking, just as a concept in Tekken?
Whack unless very carefully implemented, right? So
which they aren't mostly in this game, but go on.
They are not. And I think you touched on the point, and I want to elaborate on it, that a homing move is I don't know whether they're going to sidestep. I don't know which way they're going to sidestep, but I have a general clue. Let me do my coverage button, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like I'm not positive, but I have a hunch. And I think if you're not confident in your read, you should pay a price by giving up your turn, right? If you're confident which way they're going to sidestep, call it out directly. Most of these plus frame moves like Dragon Hammer from Law, like they track better to one side. Or Electric, if you think they're going to step right for some reason, you track them that way with like a dash electric, you get your plus frames, right? You're rewarded for having more confidence in what you're reading. Homing is like a maybe, so I'll give up my turn, right?
Right.
And I think that makes sense. homing into plus frames is crazy. Homing into let me mix you up, it's telling me that you're being punished for not hitting the button first, you know? And that feels a little odd in a Tekken game. I can accept it because it's a new Tekken game, but it is a point of frustration for sure. Where as somebody who, you know, I bought a joystick because I love the movement, I love the defensive part of the game, being forced to guess where there was not much counterplay despite aside from using my right hand to interrupt them or armor or rage art or heat burst, not my favorite style of interaction, you know?
Yeah.
But they went crazy with like June's homing mid into stance and things like that.
Yeah. Also, I know wild. I play Reyna. Sorry, I forgot to acknowledge. Yes, running 4 into plus frames into stance. Like, yeah, they could. She probably shouldn't have that either. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think the more egregious one is the Heaven's Wrath 3+4. The stomp that was supposed to track both ways used to be what -5. I thought that was well designed. I was like, okay, she's gonna cover both my directions, but she gives up her turn. Then it went to what, +3?
I think it was actually like +4 or 5. And I think now they toned it back down.
Yeah, they dialed it back, but a loss of the vision, I think.
Yeah.
But before we go, I did say I wanted to talk about the counter hits. Right?
Oh yeah. Let's get back to that.
Launch Tekken 8. They removed a bunch of the magic 4s. They either took away the 11 frame standing 4 right kicks and removed the counter hit property, or they slowed it down. So laws is like 13, right? Huge change. Really changes the dynamic of the game because now everybody's attacking more. I don't know at what point in the agenda they decided that, okay, we took away the 11 frame, 12 frame counter hit launchers. Let's give them the 10 frame ones that wall splat or heat engage. Let's make them high mid so you can't even like duck them on a good call out. Now you might argue Laws 111 is high mid. The way that string works, if you want to duck that string, you have to give up playing the rest of the game against him to laser focus your mind on ducking
and
the
focus
2 jabs
on
that
that,
you might not even
constantly looking out for that one string.
Yeah. And Dragunov 121, Lars 111, high mid for Lars.
Let's just remove all G clefs. You know who says no?
And so in alignment with the wall splatting heat smashes, I think G clefs have a place, but I think they went like Oprah and started giving everybody.
And you get one. You get one. You get one.
I saw Asuka's 124 wall splat and I lost my mind. Like, this character is already so hard to attack, right? This character is impossible to hit unless you do calculus on their timing to find the exact moment they're not parrying, high evading, kick parrying, armoring.
Hey, let King Ray tell it. She bottom 5, bro. What you mean, bro? She needs that. Like, he working harder, bro. You don't get it, bro. She got no neutral tools, bro. What you mean? It only her tracking moves her homing moves only track to one side, bro. It's linear, bro.
She was the last person that needed a 10 frame wall splatting confirmable string, you know? And I think the problem that people don't feel the pain point of these is that the pro players, they're all hit confirming it. So they're never taking the risk of the third hit. You know, the second hit is mid, it's never getting ducked.
Atif's ability to hit confirm that with Dragunov like never ceases to amaze me. I feel like him and Osan, I mean, obviously they're, to me, probably the 2 best players right now. Yeah, it is just ridiculous. I think, generally speaking, Tekken 8 has a similar issue that I felt like Dragon Ball FighterZ had that eventually pushed me away, where the risk reward is just very skewed, very high in the reward's favor, where you're just not taking enough risk in this game because things are safe or plus, or the reward is so egregious that it far outweighs the risk and everything like that. And I think if they could find a better balance of that, it would be healthier for the game and for my mental and everyone's mental for that matter. Yeah, as it stands right now, I think there's just a lot of things where it's just really high reward and very low risk, which I guess makes for fun offense when you're the one performing it, but it doesn't feel very good to be on the receiving end.
And I think in that risk reward calculation, they need to leave more options open, right? Every single character is like, I have a homing high plus move, but you can duck it. Why don't you just duck it? Like, are we gonna pretend that you don't have the mid that will launch me when you heat dash it? You know, like the idea of having more defensive interaction seems like it's sickening to whatever design philosophy is happening behind the scenes. There was a great quote that Speed said in one of the HeatSpeak podcasts where he said, "What needs to be recognized is that when you add offensive options that cover more things, unless you are literally the person playing that character, the entire community feels a loss of options. You know, the more you add to a character, the more you strengthen them, it feels like taking away. So like yes, attacking has gotten more fun. At what cost? Everybody's having less fun on defense, right?
And I think, and maybe he also mentioned this as well, or maybe someone else. I don't know if I heard this before, it was a thought I had, or it could have been both, and maybe I just agreed with it because I felt the same way. You feel loss way more than you feel like getting.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like if your character gets a buff, you're like, it's really not that big a deal. Your character loses something, gets nerfed, you're like, dog, like I needed that. Like, why would they? This character's not even that good. Yeah. You remember the patch where they nerfed down 3-4 and they were like, yeah, Hwoarang's not performing exceptionally well. Actually, this character's not even that good, so we nerfed him. I'm never gonna get over that. Yeah, anyway, on a more positive note, I'll say this. Hwoarang, as much as I'm not personally a fan of the character, isn't nearly as egregious as he was when he originally launched in Tekken 7. And the patches that we've gotten, while marginal and very small, like baby steps, they've been good. Things are trending in the right direction, albeit slowly but surely. And so I'm somewhat optimistic for the future. Like I know that at times I can be a pessimist, and I feel like I don't voice like a lot of my concerns or complaints or like things that I want as frequently as I'd like to or as in depth as I'd like to, because I don't want people to just be like, oh, all you do is whine and complain, which they do anyway, so I might as well. But all you do is whine and complain, and you'll never be satisfied, and da 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 da. But it's like, I'm just trying to be honest, you know what I'm saying? People look to me for my opinions or my criticisms, and also there are people who look to me as like, oh, you're a voice that can make a change or whatever, which I don't think I have as much power as y'all think I do, but regardless, like maybe I do have some sort of influence, whether it's with the player base or with whoever's at Namco, I don't know. But things are going in the right direction. And I think as long as we continue to have our voices be heard, although maybe some voices are a little bit louder than they should be, who's to say my voice is the right voice? So, who knows? I think things are looking up. Now, it could take us until season 4 to get to the point where we're like, yeah, this game's great. But, we're probably going to be here with Tekken 8 for quite a while. And I've seen people talk about like, oh, the game's going to die, or what are you going to do when this game dies, or the game is dying. Tekken's not going anywhere. People are looking at like the Evo numbers, which are like half of last year. I think there are a lot of factors that go into that because every game has less entrants, including Street Fighter 6. You know what I'm saying? With the economy the way it is, also Vegas sucks, in my opinion. It's extremely expensive. It's, you know what I'm saying? There's many factors that go into that. And could the state of the game or games have something to do with that? Maybe, but I don't think that's as much of a factor as people are trying to chalk it up to be. Things are going in the right direction. It's taken some time, but things are going in the right direction.
Yeah, you'd have to have me on another video for Hwoarang to elaborate on that. But I would say the rest of the game is going in a good direction. And I felt you on like, it feels like there's a limit to how good it feels to make content that is voicing legitimate complaints, right? The engagement in positivity, I think, as a creator is usually more fun, right? Like the creation of things that give us energy and sharing that energy with other people is where a lot of the fun of this content creation game comes from. So like my output has slowed a lot too. People are like, why aren't you making guides? I'm like, they're changing the game every 2 seconds. Why aren't you posting gameplays? Because I don't want to put up some gameplay and then start laughing like a maniac because something is so silly that I just have to laugh,
Right.
Like I didn't want to commentate because I didn't want to do injustice to a player who might be looking forward to being on stream and having an analysis and commentary, and me going like, oh, do the funny move. Oh,
right.
Like I want to be respectful to the people who still enjoy the game too. So it's created a hard place for me as well in terms of maintaining the output that we had in season 1 and that initial excitement. So I feel you there. It's been a tough time, and I hope that they keep cleaning it up and keep doing it quickly keep doing it quickly. I hope they speed it up because I would love to get back to a point where Tekken is the game that we share out of full, authentic excitement and joy. Like that's where I want it to be.
No doubt. Well, hey man, thank you so much for joining me here today. I greatly and thoroughly enjoyed the discussion. I could easily sit here for another hour. We've already been here for nearly as much. You're always welcome here on my channel. Anytime you ever want to discuss anything or have any ideas, I'm always down for whatever. And like you said, well, you want to come back and talk about Hwoarang, if we want to dive in more about Hwoarang and stance mix-ups and rushdowns and how problematic he is, but also how problematic some other characters are, I'm here for that. And y'all let me know if you're here for that in the comment section down below. Any closing remarks you want to say to the people before we get out of here?
Yeah, be sure to leave a like and a comment. Don't dip out of here. You made it this far, you might as well.
You know what I'm saying? Hit this video with a like if you enjoy, subscribe if you haven't already, so you can stay tuned for all this content that I'm bringing you. With all that being said, this is pretty much all I have today. And remember, nothing can happen until you swing the bat. Later.